Y Combinator is also one of our investors, and I wanted to give a quick plug to how to get into YC. I got in as a solo female founder, and that I would say is an achievement that I'm proud of because there are very, very, very few of us. A lot of people think that YC has some sort of prejudice against solo founders. I've never personally found evidence of this, but there definitely are not that many solo female founders. So I don't necessarily think that they're prejudiced against solo founders, but in general, they're just a rarer breed. Here's how you get into YC. I got in as a solo female founder and then went on to raise a $4 million seed round. So, this is how I think you should think about YC. So, first of all, is the application. When you apply, you have to think about writing your answers very briefly and clearly. So, Paul Graham, who is one of the co founders of YC, he has an essay about how to write clearly. And really, one of the theses of that is when you write clearly, you think clearly, and vice versa. So I think that that is what a lot of partners look for when they're reading through a lot of YC apps. I personally don't know how much time they spend reading each app, but even when I get sent apps to review, I don't spend that much time reading them because I'm able to very clearly figure out what kind of writing style they're using very immediately. And if it's too verbose, if it seems unclear, then it makes me think that the founders don't really know what they're doing and they're still kind of scatterbrained about what their product is, which is not what makes a good founder. So you need to be able to think and write clearly and be able to communicate your product clearly because if you can't market it clearly, and speak about it clearly, then it will not have an effective launch. So that's the first step is writing a really clear and concise application. Then you have to submit it. And from there, you will probably get an interview. At that point, I would suggest doing mock interviews with YC alum. There's a lot of people on Twitter that start getting active around the time that YC interviews start happening. And a lot of them are offering up free help to be able to give YC interviews to people. So you can do these mock interviews. It's a good way to get practice in. You can potentially read about the questions that they ask you during a YC interview, and I would definitely prepare answers for those. But really, what you need to do these mock interviews for is to get accustomed to the cadence of the YC interviews because it's really not about the questions, it's about the cadence. Every YC interview is only 10 minutes. They ask you the questions really, really fast, and some of them won't be afraid to interrupt you, and you need to be able to move beyond that. So that's why it's important to have these mock interviews and have really clear, concise answers at the ready, but to also be prepared to be interrupted and be able to move on beyond that while still conveying a good sense of EQ and sociability and also a good relationship with your co founder. I think that that's not something that I thought a lot about because I interviewed solo, but as I've conducted mock interviews for other people that are applying to IC, something that I've noticed is a clear dynamic between the co-founders needs to be very transparent and it needs to have a healthy presentation for how your relationship is. Yeah, so those are all of the steps of getting into YC. You do the application and then you may be invited for an interview and then from there you can do YC.